Hello, everybody. We'll get started in a few minutes. Welcome to the webinar this afternoon. Happy you could be here.
You know, it's fun to hear who you are and where you're coming in from. So this is a great opportunity to use the chat box if you haven't used it. What you do is you move your cursor around until you see a menu pop up and you click on chat. And tell us who you are and where you are. And if you're representing an organization, we would love to know who and where.
They're already coming in, Andy.
I see it. I see it. Somebody's here from Hillsborough. Hey, Elizabeth, welcome. Got Rockport, Illinois in the house. Arlington, Virginia. That would be Ann.
Yeah, that's me.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Andy.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Model appropriate behavior. Oh, here they come. Sweet. Stockton. Somebody's here from Ontario. Nice. Lexington, Virginia. Green Bay. Southern California. New Hampshire. Boom. This is fun. Let's just do this for a while. It's like a geography lesson.
And we still have another 2 minutes as people are loading up. So welcome, everybody.
And as a reminder, when you use chat, you can direct where you're going. So you can direct, in this case, you want to send it to all panelists and attendees so everybody can see who you are and where you are.
And one of the things we mentioned is that during this crisis, there have been quite a few good cartoons that we will be using throughout. So welcome, everybody. We'll still get started in just a few minutes. We're waiting till the top of the hour.
Judy, I'll have Tiger King for 1,000, please.
I have yet to see that. Hey, Pine Jog is on. Excellent. So many great people.
Yeah, if you're just coming in, let us know who you are and where you're coming from. Nice.
Colorado.
Yes, that's great.
Virginia, California.
Florida, Michigan, Colorado, Connecticut. It's good. Welcome, everybody.
Okay, 30 seconds and we'll start.
Nice. Welcome, everybody. As you're just coming in, feel free to let us know via chat who you are and where you are, and maybe even who you work with.
Okay, we're going to get started, everybody, and I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar. Really happy you could be here. My name is Judy Browse, and I'm the Executive Director of the North American Association for Environmental Education, and we're so happy that you could join us today. And we're really excited that we're going to be able to focus on strategies for how to raise money during these tough and uncertain times. And I know that many of you have asked us about how to do this, if it's appropriate to be raising money during this time. And you're also a little afraid to raise money during this time. For some of you, you're pros at this, for others you might not be. And we are so lucky today to have a guest speaker who can help us with all of this. So I will introduce Andy Robinson more fully in just a minute, but if anyone can help us, it's Andy. He has so much experience. I do want to mention that during this crisis, we are trying to hold more webinars on a variety of topics, and we do want to hear from you what topics would be most important to you, and Ann will have more about that at the end. Some of the topics are related directly to the pandemic and how we are coping, and others are directly related to new insights and learning and bringing joy to our work. So fill us in on what you're most interested in. Just a heads up, on April 30th, Michael Margolis will be leading a webinar on communicating like a leader, who will talk about how do we pivot our stories during this time and think about our communications during a pandemic. So you don't want to miss this one either. Michael is fantastic. I also want to thank our affiliate co-hosts again, who are working with NAAE to help advance environmental education and to support this webinar. If you're not a member of your state, regional, or provincial affiliate, it's a great time to get involved because we all need help. So thank you to all our affiliates out there. We love working with you. We also know that you've been on a bazillion Zoom calls in the past month and probably a bunch already today. So thank you for joining today. And we also know that, as Andy explained, many of you know Zoom, but some of you use other platforms. So you are all muted. The way to communicate is through the chat box. And you can either send a note to Ann, Andy, and myself, or you can send it to everyone. And if you're posting resources and ideas, we hope you will send it to everyone, and everyone will get a copy of the recording, the slides, and the chat. So don't worry about taking notes. You'll get everything afterward. Also want to mention that we are adding captioning to the recording for anyone who might be having trouble with the audio. We've been doing that with all our webinars as they go out in the recording. And I also want to thank Ann, who is online and is our Director of Professional Development and EE360, our cooperative agreement with EPA. Ann is fantastic, helping to manage the whole webinar series. If you have any issues, you can send a note to her or myself in the Zoom chat box. So best part of right now is introducing Andy Robinson, and I am really excited to be able to introduce him. He's one of my favorite trainers, and I have seen him help so many audiences focus on how to raise money, especially during a tough time, but also how to think about it for nonprofits. What are some strategies, tips, and tricks on how to do that? Now, Andy's been doing a lot of thinking about fundraising for the last 25 years, and he provides training and consulting for nonprofits in not only fundraising, but board development, marketing, earned income, leadership development, and facilitation. He's worked with more than 47 organizations across the country and in Canada. And I first met Andy when I was working at the National Audubon Society, and Ann and I were running a program called Together Green, and he did some training with our fellows, and it was fantastic. And since then, he has been such a friend to NAAE, training our board and our partners board. And he specializes in the needs of groups working for human rights, social justice, environmental conservation, arts, and community development. He's written a bunch of books, including Train Your Board and Everyone Else to Raise Money. And I'm just so excited that, Andy, you could be with us today to help us think about fundraising. So let's give him a warm and virtual welcome. And Andy, take it away.
Nice. So first of all, let me thank Judy, and let me thank Ann, and let me thank everybody at NAAE for all your support and helping to get me here and doing all the logistics to make this work. Couple logistical things. We have the slides, we'll get them out to you as mentioned. We are saving some time at the end for questions, but we're also going to do our best to take questions throughout the whole webinar. So chat is your friend, and feel free to chat away. if you have questions or comments, and we'll do our best periodically to pause and try and answer them. And as I said, we'll try and save some time at the end. I'm going to have Anne doing my slide jockeying for me. Thank you, Anne. And both Anne and Judy will be paying attention to the chat box and helping me out there. And Judy, I'm going to actually have you unmute yourself if you can do that, because you and I may have a conversation as we go forward with this.
Got it.
Let us go to the next slide, please. You've already heard about me. What I will say is that I've been raising money for 40 years now, which means I have lived as a fundraiser through a variety of crises. I have lived through the dot-com crash. I have lived through 9/11. I have lived through a variety of natural disasters. I have lived through the Great Recession. There are some things that we have learned from previous crises that I think are helpful now. And granted, this is something different because it's always something different, but there's a lot that we can learn from past, and I'm going to try and bring that into the conversation today. Next slide, please. So why are you here? And this is a great opportunity to use chat, so fire it up. What do you want to learn? Why is this topic important? If you have one overarching question you want to get addressed, this is your opportunity to do it. You know, Judy, you got your pulse on the world of environmental ed. What are you hearing from folks? And you don't just talk to me. I'll look at the chat box, but what are you hearing from folks? What do you think the concerns are?
So there are a number of concerns that we've been hearing through all of this, and one is for nonprofits that are working in the environmental education space, how relevant is our fundraising compared to all the people that are very urgently in need, don't have enough food, all the disparity that we're seeing in society. The other is how to do it, since many of our staffs have been cut or furloughed, how to help our boards help us. So people are just asking for help because many people are suffering.
Got it. So we're already starting to see this on chat, is how do we make ourselves relevant in the face of what is perceived to be a human need situation? How are we ever going to run environmental education field programs again? Well, this is an interesting question. It's not my topic for today, but I will say I live in the woods in Vermont, and the best thing I do every day is get outside. It is the thing that makes me happy and sane. So I have to think that, even as this situation evolves, there will be opportunities to engage people outdoors. That may be your secret weapon in raising money in this time. Let's see what else is coming up here. How do we go virtual? How do we stay relevant? Yeah, it's a whole question of unknowns. So this gets us to the poll questions, and let's move on to those. We have a couple of them for you. I'd like to know your primary gig. Like, what role are you filling? I will appreciate that many of you have multiple roles, but pick one. What's the primary hat you're wearing on today's call? And it's everything from executive director all the way down to superhero. And, we're all superheroes, but you get to claim that if you'd like. Let us know who you are. And again, the way this works is you go ahead and click a box, and we'll shut it down in, I don't know, another 10 seconds, and then we'll put up the results and see who we have on the call today. All right, Anne, fire up the results, please.
Stand by.
Stand by, it's always a standby. Nice. We got primarily program people, that's good, executive directors. We got about 25% fundraisers and development staff. Welcome. Board members, volunteers, a couple consultants, one superhero. Yes, whoever you are, I salute you. Name it, claim it, that's good. All right, so let's talk about today's outcomes. And you can go ahead and shut the poll down. We'll go to the next slide. Here's what we're going to try and cover today. There's a lot of different ways to raise money. We're going to talk about a variety of income options. As noted, I want to give you some fundraising lessons from previous crises that might be relevant here. We'll talk briefly about protecting core work, because one of the things we have to do is raise money, and we also have to manage expenses. We have to do both of those things. We'll talk about donor engagement, and this is therapy, whether it's designed or not. My job is to help you not to freak out. So we're going to spend a little time working on that today as well. Which takes me to the next poll question. And this one's about your biggest concern. And I will note that all of the above is an option here. But as you're thinking about your fundraising, what is the thing that concerns you the most at this moment? And Judy, we were talking earlier, and you mentioned the piece about relevance. Is there anything else that you would say that people are seeing as a primary concern?
Well, I think the other thing is that issue about virtual learning and how to switch gears, where you were raising money for outdoor programming or place-based programming or school programming, and now you're raising money for good virtual learning, or people are not able to have a face-to-face conference, and that's where a lot of revenue came from. So what do we do? And can we ask for people to pay for a virtual conference? That's another thing that people have asked us.
Yeah, and we'll touch on earned income. It's one of the topics in the webinar. The short answer is yes. I think if you're delivering stuff that's high quality that people get value from, yeah, you should be charging for it. So the biggest concerns that people have, not surprisingly, is uncertainty. Though all of the above is very popular for obvious reasons. I mean, you sort of hit on all of these, which is good. My strategy today is to try and address as many of these as I can. So that's where we're going. We can go ahead and close the poll, and we can head to the next slide, please. So let's talk briefly about prioritization. I have this conversation with myself whether I put this at the front or the back, and I thought I'd just do it at the front, because everything after this is about how do you not have to do this by getting more money. But let's just name that you may have to look at the suite of programming that you have and think about, if we have fewer resources, how do we decide what to keep and what to jettison? Now, there's a couple of tools I want to show you. The primary tool today is called the matrix map. Let's go to the next slide. And this comes to us from three nonprofit superheroes, Gene Bell, Jan Masioka, Steve Zimmerman. They're all at different times connected to Compass Point nonprofit, which is in San Francisco, and they're big thinkers in our field. And go to the next slide. This is a real simple tool that I have used a lot with clients and I think is pretty helpful. So you have two axes here. You have the right and left axis, which is how fundable or profitable something is, and it goes from low on the left to high on the right. And then up and down, we have mission impact. Stuff at the top really advances your mission. Going down the line to the bottom doesn't really advance your mission much. So you could slice this into 4 quadrants. Upper right, that's the star. These are the things that generate revenue, that are profitable, and also impact your mission in a really positive way. And your goal is to get as much of your programming into that quadrant as you possibly can. The stuff on the left at the top with the heart, those are things that we do because they're mission related and they're important, and they may never be profitable and they may never generate a lot of revenue, but it's core work because it's so related to the mission. Lower right, this is the money tree. These are the things that generate revenue, are profit centers as opposed to cost centers, but they may or may not advance the mission very strongly. And then the lower left with the stop sign are things that neither advance the mission nor generate money. And to state the obvious, you need to get rid of those things as quickly as you can. So it's an interesting exercise to sit down with your accounting and to sit down with your programming and plot it out and say, based on our different lines of business, different programs that we have, where do we need to focus? And I have found this tool to be basic and helpful for people as far as having that conversation. It's a way to have that conversation rationally and dispassionately. So let's go to the next slide. One of the gurus is Kim Klein. Some of you may have had the pleasure to work with Kim. She's been a friend and mentor to me for many years. And I love this quote. She says, "Most people's instinct is to cut expenses rather than raise money. Resist this impulse as much as possible." And I will tell you, in this moment when things are crazy, all the fundraising phobic people on your board, in your organization and amongst your donors, the people who find fundraising distasteful or inappropriate, they will come crawling out of the woodwork and they will be very loud now. And they will say, we can't ask, it's inappropriate. This isn't the right thing to do. And had you in the room with me now, if we were all together, we would all start chanting, resist this impulse as much as possible, resist this impulse as much as possible. Because yeah, you can raise some money now. And I want you to lean into that. There may be times to cut. Those times may come. But task one is to get more resources. So proceed to the next slide. Quick story. And this is a story about 9/11/2001, which was a disastrous day in the history of this country and the history of the world. And it certainly was a national crisis. I have a friend, her name is Alyssa. She was fresh out of college. She was 23 years old. She was doing her first fundraising job. And she had been scheduling appointments to meet with donors to go and ask them in person to give. And she scheduled 17 donor appointments for what turned out to be the week of 9/11/2001. So then this disaster happens. And what do I do? What do I do? And what she did was she called all of her donors that she was scheduled to meet with and said, do you want to still meet? And of the 17 she called, 16 said, yes, your work remains important. I still want to meet with you. And she did 16 donor meetings and she got 16 gifts during the week of 9/11. Some cases, the donors increased their support. Now, all the seasoned, sophisticated fundraisers were saying, we have to cancel our fundraising events. We can't talk to donors. This is the wrong time. People have other things on their minds. And she was too naive to know that you shouldn't ask for money in the middle of a national crisis. So she went out and asked anyway, and she raised a whole lot of money. And then what happened is a lot of these groups had their totals go down and they blamed it on 9/11, which I understand. The problem was they stopped asking. They canceled their events. They canceled their mailings. They stopped talking to their donors. Of course, their fundraising totals went down. So rule number one, I'll say this 10 times in the next 40 minutes, keep engaging your donors. Even if you choose not to ask now because that feels inappropriate or you don't have something you want to ask for, continue to thank them, continue to appreciate them, continue to ask who they are and how they're doing. Next slide. So this blew me away. Many of you are familiar with statewide giving days. I mean, the mother of all this is Giving Tuesday, but many states have created a day where philanthropies can come together, pitch their donors together. There's one central place where the money is collected and then it's distributed. So a week and a half ago, right in the middle of this pandemic, was Arizona Gives, the statewide giving day. They raised $5 million in 24 hours. That was a 40% increase over last year. Right in the middle of this national crisis, they were pitching all their donors and the money went up by 40%. And I want to tell you that literally most of the money went to non-COVID relief organizations. The #1 recipient organization out there was animal welfare groups, most of which are all volunteer animal shelters. Charter schools, other groups that are not connected to healthcare or feeding the hungry or even human services, they did really well. And you know, I'm not entirely sure how to analyze this, but I think part of it is that people in times of crisis, they want to help. They want to participate. They want to feel like they're doing something good. They want to feel agency, right? They want to have something they can act on. This is a way that people can act. And, you know, just because people care about environmental ed before this, it doesn't mean they don't care about it now. And so what happens in a moment like this is people want to connect with other people that have the same values and the same interests. And that's where our organizations can lean forward, is to actually find those people and connect with them and connect them with each other. So let's go to the next slide. So before we do the myths, Judy, let me pause here. Is there anything going on in chat I need to respond to?
Yes, there were a couple of really good questions. One was from Martina, and
Yep.
this is something that has come up about the equity aspects of, say, going virtually online and thinking about equity in our fundraising efforts. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
That's a good question and a hard question. I mean, just a quick side note here. One of the things I've been doing is training people on webinars and virtual meetings and how to engage people remotely, because we're all doing that now. And one thing that came up was that how do we get people in a Zoom meeting to turn on their cameras so we can actually see them? And somebody pointed out to me, and I hadn't thought of this, I was grateful for this, is that's also an equity issue. Because there are people who may not feel safe being on camera. There are people who may be home with a lot of kids running around in a small space who don't feel like they can reveal their background. You know, all sorts of class differences may show up without us even knowing it, based on what we're seeing behind people. So the answer is we do the best we can. And if people cannot connect with us virtually because they don't have a computer or they have poor Wi-Fi or they're in a remote location, you know, there's still the mail. The postal service goes everywhere. And there may be other ways to think about doing this. I mean, an idea that I heard, which we'll talk about later, is I have a colleague who's doing walk and talks with her donors, but they're not together. They're in separate neighborhoods, and they schedule a walking date, and they each take out their cell phone and they go for a walk and they talk to each other. And some of it's, what are you seeing in your neighborhood? What am I seeing in my neighborhood? So that's a way you can engage with somebody that's a little less, I think the equity issues are less present there, and maybe pretty much everyone could be talked to on the phone.
And Andy, one other thing is that some people have suggested, and we've been talking about this for a virtual conference, of doing a sliding scale so that some people who can't pay, and others who have money can pay, as a way to make it more equitable. But there's still an access issue, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk a little later about fee for service and earned income. I will say this, generally speaking, free is a bad price. And I will point out to you that we're doing better than usual today. This is a free event, and I understand why, and I won't criticize it. I will say when you do free events, a lot of the people who sign up don't show up. And there is this thing called perceived value. And this is, I think, one of the ways that capitalism has messed with our brains. But the idea of perceived value is that if you pay for something, it must be worth more and must have more value than if it's free. So I like the sliding scale because it's a nice compromise. The idea is that this is what it costs. And I think if you're going to do sliding scale, you need to be transparent about the costs. Like, we're going to put on a program, it's costing us $1,500 in staff time and resources to do this. And we're asking you to pay what you can, and the suggested sliding scale is anywhere from $0 to $100. So please pick a number that works for you. If you're not working, you don't have any resources, you can't pay anything, welcome. We want you to come anyway. But if you can give, you're helping to underwrite the people who can't. And I think the transparency around that is an important point that we forget. All right, so let's talk about some myths. This is one you guys have already hit on. Our work isn't relevant now. We're not a food bank. We're not a hospital. We're not providing medical services. And I will argue vigorously that the work of nonprofits right now is community and connection. Period. That's what people want. And if to tell me that you're not relevant because you're not doing that work, I will say, yeah, you're actually more relevant now. Because the EE people need other EE people. I mean, you all need to be together. You need to support each other. You need to figure out how you can do your work in ways that are successful. You can learn from each other. So, I mean, that's why you have a network, but I would argue your donors, your supporters, your funders, your grant makers, they're part of that network too. Next slide. So, interesting story. This is another 9/11 story. A lot of groups stopped fundraising, and then at the end of the year, their totals went down and they blamed it on 9/11. They said all the money went to the Twin Towers Fund and the 9/11 Relief Fund, and the donors who used to give to us gave to the Red Cross. And then we looked at the data, and for the 12 months following 9/11, 1% of all the philanthropy in this country went to 9/11 related charities. And this idea that there is displacement, that the money that we used to get goes to somebody else, there's very little evidence of that in history. Very little. And my sense is in these moments, and I'm seeing this with donors I know, people are stepping up. They're actually increasing their giving. And I think the story about Arizona Gives is a really good example of that. So What drives this is scarcity mentality. There's a fixed amount of money, there's a pie, we have to slice the pie, somebody else gets a bigger slice, I get a smaller slice. And I feel like our job as fundraisers is to make the pie larger, to expand the amount of money that's available to all of us. Next slide. Now this one is true and it isn't. And the myth is that when the economy stinks, there's less money for people to give. So there's some truth here. I will tell you, during the Great Recession, so we're talking 2008, 2009, 2010, the stock market declined by 60%. During that same time period, philanthropy declined by about 10 to 15%. So there wasn't a direct correlation. It was a little bumpy. I mean, yeah, some of you might remember, got a little bumpy, but it was not catastrophic. And in fact, many of the groups that survived the Great Recession bounced back and are bigger and stronger now than they were then. So a bad economy does not help us as fundraisers. That is absolutely true. And it's a convenient excuse for people who find fundraising problematic or distasteful. So I still believe there's money out there, and I'm about to show you where all of it is. Let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about the wildfires. So one of my professional careers, this is a little weird, but one of my professional careers has been going around the country after natural disasters to teach people how to raise money in that moment. So years ago, I went to Iowa after the big floods in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City. I did training there. A couple of years ago, I went out to California after the Thomas Fire, which took a big piece of Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. And I did training, but I also sat in circles with people who were fundraisers, and I said, what are you learning about this moment? And one thing they told me, and I thought this was useful, was that it's okay, even if you're not a social service agency, to help your neighbors. If you're an environmental education group and you want to do a food drive for the food bank, that's lovely. I mean, that's good. As nonprofits, we need to sort of lean into our ability to help other people. We have networks. We can gather those networks and deploy them in places that need help. That's not wrong. Second bullet here, we've talked about this, is you got to get closer to your donors. How are you doing? Now, here's a story from 2 weeks ago. I was doing a webinar and a woman said this. She said, I have been calling all of my donors just to see how they are, not to solicit them, but how are you feeling? How's your health? Are you scared? Do you have people with you? And she said in many cases, after they hung up the phone, these folks mailed in unsolicited checks just because she was good enough to call and say, how are you doing? So that's not an ask, it's a gift. But we sort of cower in these moments, we hide, and I don't know that that's good fundraising. Good fundraising is reaching out. The other note I'll give here is that there will be lots of GoFundMe pages popping up and other crowdfunding that's informal, and there's some lovely beauty to that, and there's also some challenges with that. So the thing about avoiding freelancing is a lot of people started GoFundMe pages for their neighbors. Again, lovely instinct. They didn't realize it was taxable income for themselves. They didn't realize about the fees. They didn't realize about the lag time to get the money. They were flying blind. And that's why we have nonprofit 501c3s, is these are good, kosher, legal ways to handle the money and distribute it. So some freelancing will happen now, but we want to minimize that if we can. Next slide. So before I go here, Judy, is there anything else popping up I should address?
Yeah, we've had a couple of other questions. Mary wanted to know if they are just starting their fundraising and they're new and they don't have existing donors, any advice for how to start without having a track record?
Couple thoughts. Thought number one is maybe you want to partner with other established organizations and think about some sort of collective fundraising effort you could do together. And I do have a slide on that later, so I'll circle back to that. But this might be an opportunity for joint fundraising. The other thing I'd say is if you don't have a list, what you're starting with is your own personal networks. Your friends, your neighbors, your Facebook groups, whatever. And that's going to be true in any environment. That's going to be true in a not crisis environment, and a healthy one, unhealthy one. So I don't see a problem with reaching out to your existing networks. And I would probably spin this as a phoenix out of the ashes sort of story. And you might say, this is a crazy time to be starting a new nonprofit, given what's going on. But we're so excited by the work. We're so passionate about the mission. We see the need even more clearly now than we did 3 months ago. We're going for it. And if you want to root for the underdog, this is a chance for you to make a donation to this startup that we're really excited about. And I would just make a positive message out of it. Here we are in this crazy moment doing something crazy. Show us your support, because you could do that, and I think it would work. All right, so the money bucket. There are 3 big buckets for charitable organizations in the US. And I know I have at least one person on the call from Canada. I don't have Canadian slide data, but I can tell you, my Canadian friends, the data ship there is called Imagine Canada. And if you go to Imagine Canada, they should have relatively current philanthropy info for Canadian donors. Here in the US, we have the philanthropy bucket. We have the public funding, which is government money. That's all levels of government, state, federal, local, regional, county, municipal, all the governments. And then we have earned income, which we've already started talking about. That's the money you charge for the programming you do. Collectively, you are all part of a $1.5 trillion industry, which is a staggering amount of money. That is 7 or 8% of the US economy. If we were our own nation, I love this statistic. If we were our own nation, the United States of nonprofit organizations, $1.5 trillion would give us the 13th largest economy in the world. That is bigger than the economies of Australia or Mexico or Spain. That's what we're talking about here. So my biggest challenge as a fundraising trainer is the whole concept of scarcity. Scarcity is, oh, there's no money. Oh, the economy's bad. Oh, everyone else is getting it. There's so much competition. And I will tell you, this is a self-fulfilling mindset. If you start with scarcity, you end up with scarcity. What I'm showing you on this slide is the opposite of scarcity. It's abundance. And so these numbers are going to shift in the next year or two. There is no doubt. One thing we're seeing now is that a lot of groups are getting government money that never got it before. And I know several nonprofits that are trying to collect, you know, the paycheck protection money, the EIDL money. Some are succeeding, some haven't succeeded yet. But that bucket just got bigger. We'll see what happens to the other buckets. The one I want to stress, next slide, please, is the philanthropy piece. Please note that about 20% to 25% of the money comes from institutional donors. That's businesses and foundations. And about 75 to 80% of the money comes from individual donors. This is true year after year. This is true in a good economy and a bad economy. This does not change substantially. So what happened during the last recession, the Great Recession, was that there was a lag time and foundations gave less money in year 2 or 3 because the value of their stock portfolios had gone down. And the groups that got hit hard then were the ones that were relying substantially on government funding because governments had less tax revenue to spend and give away to nonprofits. So the message for me is A, diversify, and B, look harder at individual donors. If you're one of those groups that's relying primarily on grants, this is a wake-up call moment for you. And we need to think, I think, more carefully and more thoughtfully and more assertively about how do we bring individual donors into our groups. Now, next slide. Talking about the individuals, here's what we know. Roughly half of American households give to nonprofits. Now, the good news is half of your neighbors are donors. That's pretty awesome. The bad news is that percentage has declined gradually over the last 2 decades. And it used to be in the range of 65 to 70%. I think this is all about income inequality. But we're still in a position where more than half of the money in this country that is given away comes from middle class, working class, and poor people. So one of the myths I have to deal with is I don't know Bill Gates or I don't know Oprah and therefore I can't raise money. And I want to say most of the money is actually coming from your neighbors. It's coming from the people. It's coming from la gente. It's out there. Most donors who give to multiple groups. It's if they give to the Red Cross or they give to the food bank, it doesn't mean they can't also give to you. And median household giving, at least 2018 was around $900 per year. So that's pretty decent. I mean, it's a good amount of money. And that means half of the households who contribute are contributing $900 or more. So we need to reach out, I think, more systematically, more assertively to bring those donors in. We'll talk about how to do that. Let's go to the next slide. So at the risk of being redundant, this is all about diversity. And as you're trying to survive and perhaps thrive in this moment, we have to look at all the income options that are out there and pick the ones that are going to generate the most revenue. Now, Judy has already mentioned people doing conferences, and that's a loss of revenue when you can't sponsor a conference. I would hope that you are really diligent on the timekeeping and the accounting on conferences. Because my experience is that most conferences actually lose money. When you factor in the amount of staff time it costs to produce them, and the fact that we often underprice them, there are reasons to do them. I mean, getting the people together is beautiful. But the idea that a conference is a net fundraiser, for most organizations, I don't know that that's true. It is cash flow. It's money coming in the door. But if you're not spending that money to produce the conference, then what else could you be spending that money on that would generate net revenue for you? That's the question. So before I dive into the three big buckets, let's see if there are other questions. Judy?
So Andy, a couple of others, several people have kind of asked, how do they stand out during this time above the noise? And then Sarah asked about strategies for messaging during this time.
Yep.
And then the last one, just so you have all three at once, how to follow up with funders that say, sorry, we're supporting the frontline COVID organizations right now, and how to keep them engaged.
Well, let's take the last one first. The answer is stay in touch. Say thank you for the important work you're doing. Those folks certainly need you. And we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and we'll stay in touch. And when your guidelines shift back to what they were before, hopefully we can get your support at that point. I mean, you don't want to chew them out, right? You don't want to be rude. Like, what do you mean you're not giving us money anymore? So stay in touch and be gracious about it. In terms of messaging, I think you want to be transparent and compassionate and say to your donors, this is a challenging time for all of us. And we continue to be committed to the work we're doing. And we're looking for new ways to do that work. And your support is even more important now than it was before, because we're trying to figure this out too. Something that I have learned recently, I've been doing as I said, I've been doing all these webinars on webinars and webinars on virtual meetings. And this has come up consistently, which is people have a high tolerance for imperfection right now. We are all making this stuff up as we go along, and everybody sort of gets that. And so if you're somebody who likes to have a real firm calendar and you like to nail it every time and you want to get it right, this is going to be a challenging moment for you, because there's going to be some missteps. There's going to be some real missteps. But I think our donors and our partners and our funders are very, they're accepting of that. So partly what I want you to do is experiment. I want you to try different messages and different strategies and see what works. One interesting idea I would have you do is put together a virtual focus group of some of your best donors and or funders. Get 5 or 6 or 7 on a Zoom call and say, I'm trying to figure out how to message in this moment. Here's a couple of ideas we've been trying out. What do you all think? I mean, you're on the receiving end of these messages. Do these work for you or not? Tell us how to improve them. And there's a famous cliche in fundraising that goes like this. It says, if you want advice, ask for money. If you want money, ask for advice. And I think this is a lovely time to lean in with your donors and say, we don't know what we're doing here. Nobody knows what they're doing. Let's figure it out together. So I like to show up with humility. And I find that that seems to work really well as a fundraiser. And Judy, I'm forgetting the first question you asked me. Do you even remember it?
It was how to stand out above the noise. So and that's partly the messaging.
Yeah, well, yes, and.
Yeah.
I have to tell you all, none of you are in the mass conversion business. And if you live in a community of 500,000 people, I mean, wherever you are, your job is to find the 500 or 1,000 people, maybe 1,500 people, for whom environmental education is a really high priority. This is not a moment to convince people who don't know who you are or why it's important. This is a moment to circle back to the people who already know you and get what you do and keep them closer. So the way you stand out above the noise is to stick to what you do, but stick to the people who already care. And that's going to be your donors, your program participants, the parents of the kids that you work with, the consumers of your programming. None of us are in the mass conversion business. We are all in the how do we find the people who already get what we do and bring them in closer business. And that has never been more true than it is right now. Let's go to the next slide. So the 3 buckets I want to talk with you about, we'll do this pretty quick, are individual donors, grants, and earned income, fee for service, earned revenue, that sort of thing. Individuals give in a variety of ways. You can see the list here. The one that I really want people to be thinking about and perhaps pushing now is monthly giving. Monthly giving is when people give you the credit card or the bank information and automatically you take out some money every month. It's often a small amount of money, which makes it affordable even if people are feeling dubious about their finances. But it's also a way to build loyalty. The renewal rates on those programs are like 85 to 90%. And if you get enough folks, it adds up to real money. Let's talk, go to the next slide, Ann, you're reading my mind, it's all good. Here's some tips and ideas for engaging your donors remotely. A lot of groups are doing online parties, online happy hours. Just come on, 5 o'clock Friday, here's the Zoom thing, come on in, bring a snack, bring something to drink, let's just hang out and talk about what we're doing. You could have programming that's only for donors. And you know, some people will say this is an equity issue, and I'm not saying you only do stuff for donors, but I think it's okay to have stuff that's a little bit exclusive, where you're actually putting something out and you're saying, this is for the members of our organization, or this is for the people who are paying tuition to come to our children's programming or whatever, it's just for them. You can also do free stuff for the community. It's not either or, it's a both and. We've talked about virtual focus groups and check-ins. I think that's good. Next slide. You can interview your donors. You can pick up the phone. I'm doing 3 days of Zoom training next week. Like we're breaking up the days, but one thing we decided is that for people in the program who want to talk to the trainers and the faculty individually, we're going to do office hours, but we're only going to do it by phone. Because we're going to be on Zoom enough and there's going to be enough of this video stuff going on that people can actually just talk on a phone. It still works. And then I mentioned this earlier, you could actually walk around with a donor in a different neighborhood and schedule a phone call and just talk to each other on the phone while you're out walking. That'd be sort of fun. So I want to open this up. Like, what thoughts do you have? This is a chat opportunity right now. What thoughts do you have in terms of remote engagement of donors? Maybe it's stuff you've done, stuff you've experienced as a donor. Maybe it's ideas you're thinking about. Given that we can't be in the room with each other, how do we stay in touch? Yes, Facebook Live, that's a possibility. We could put some video up, I like it. Yeah, so keep them coming. And Judy, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about, I'm just writing down all these tips and tricks. Facebook Live, monthly giving, this is great.
Yeah, a postcard,
And
I love that. Sarah says postcard. I just sent a postcard to my best friend. I literally put it in the mail today. So that's cool.
Thinking of you, snail mail, that's great, Mara.
Billboards, whoa, billboards, nice. Oh, this is good. Thinking about how to have donors record themselves, sharing how our COVID-19 response has positively impacted them. So you get testimonials from donors in the form of video and you have them post. And you could gather them up and you can put them on your own social media too. That'd be very nice. Thinking of you, snail mail, why not? I mean, this is good.
Well, and Andy, we've had when our board writes thank you notes to
Yes.
our donors, handwritten thank you notes on nice little cards, they love it.
I'm the treasurer of a local nonprofit, and I am obsessive about sending out the handwritten thank you notes. And I buy a card at a local bookstore, and literally people stop me on the street and thank me for thanking them. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's not what you'd expect. All right, so this is good. Let's go to the next slide. We'll talk about grants. Now, grants come in a lot of flavors, and I realize there are certainly groups on this call who are getting foundation grants. Some of you have gotten government grants. Some of you may be getting corporate gifts or corporate sponsorships. I don't know how many of you have reached out to local congregations in the past for financial support, but that could be an option for some of you. I want to show you how this is going to affect the foundation world. Go to the next slide. So this is the bad news slide. There's like one bad news slide. Here it is. This is what happened in the stock market over the month of March. What this means is most foundations, their portfolios are invested in the stock market. So when their portfolio goes down, they have less money to spend because they're earning less money. And that means usually a year to 2 years later, they start to cut the amounts of grants that they give out because they're usually on a 5-year rolling average. One of the cool things that's happened, next slide, is that the Council on Foundations, which is sort of the grant makers trade association, has offered up this pledge. And you guys can go and study this on your own. You go to the Council on Foundations, I think it's cof.org, and look for the pledge. There's maybe 400 foundations have offered to do this. And I'm not remembering all of it, but I'm remembering some of it. First of all, they're pledging to let you take your project grant money and use it for general operating support. Second thing they're promising is that they're going to lighten their reporting requirements so they're not so burdensome. The third thing, and this is amusing if it wasn't amusing, is that they're going to listen more to their grantees and their needs, which God help us they should be doing from the beginning, but now they realize they have to do that even more than they were doing it before. And so the point is they're trying to be more flexible and responsive and pitching out some of the rules and guidelines that they traditionally follow because you're in crisis mode and they need to honor that. So a lot of funders are embracing this, and that's lovely. So you might actually check with some of your own foundation money if you have them and say, you know, how much flexibility do we have on our grants, and can we actually convert some of this to general operating, and can we push back our reporting requirements 6 months because we really don't know how we're going to finish this grant cycle. And I think in many cases they will cut you some slack because they're improvising too. Next slide. Now, my colleague Diane Russell, shout out to Diane at the Institute for Conservation Leadership, she and I did a version of this last week, and she reached out to a bunch of funders and she got like 8 pages of notes in terms of their guidance on what to do. And this is a sweet little summary. Stay close. Same thing with donors, same thing with funders. Be transparent. It's okay to say, you know, we're looking at a 30% hit in our budget and we're not quite sure how we're going to manage it, but we're improvising and this is what we think we're going to do. And there's a tendency when you're dealing with funders to always put your best face forward, and I understand that. This is not the moment to do that. I think you have to get, pardon the metaphor, you have to get a little bit naked. And if you're afraid, it's okay to talk about that. And if you're not sure how the budget's going to pencil out for the rest of the year, it's okay to talk about that because everyone's having that problem. You're going to probably have to adapt your strategies, and that means primarily fundraising strategies. I mean, this might be an awesome time to go to your funders, meaning the foundations, the institutional funders, and say, I want to convert what's left of our grant to a matching grant because I want to use that to challenge our donors to give. So can we take $10,000 of our $50,000 grant and use it as a challenge gift so we can get individual donors to pitch in right now? Will you switch that to a dollar-to-dollar match? And that's like the classic trick in fundraising is double your money. So that might be an opportunity. And finally, you got to pay attention to what their needs are because this is a mutually supportive relationship. And I would find out what they need to make their work work. Maybe they need different kind of reporting from you. Maybe they need you to engage with, you know, give them something that they can present to their trustees. Maybe they need some boots on the ground information that they don't have from funding stratosphere. So,
and Andy, I'll just jump in on the reporting. One of our funders said, you don't need to write a report. We'll just do a quick Zoom call. We don't want to add burden to you. So the funders are really looking at ways to help nonprofits.
yeah, it's interesting. We don't think of it this way, but a funder can't do a funder's job without a grantee to give the money to. And if everybody on this call goes under, which is not going to happen, but if everybody on this call goes under, then they're screwed too, because who are they going to give the money to? So if they're committed to environmental education, they need you to survive because your mission is their mission. So I want you to negotiate from a position of strength, and that doesn't mean be aggressive, but it simply means let's talk about what we need. Let's talk about what you need as a funder. Let's see if we can figure out a way to meet both of our needs. Let's go to the next slide. So fee for service, many of you have programming in normal times that you would charge tuition for. Some of you may have services that you offer on a fee base. Some of you may sell swag, right? You've got the t-shirts and you've got the coffee mugs and the baseball hats. That's still a real opportunity. That has not gone away. It has morphed into something different, but it is still there. So I want to give you a way to think about this, I hope. Go to the next slide. This is what I've called the earned income spectrum. At one end, down on the left, we have the groups that are selling the t-shirts and the coffee mugs and are making 3% of their budget, and they have a closet full of stuff they can't unload. And that's, the beginning of how we think this way. Maybe you went to a workshop like this and you thought, oh, we should diversify our funding. Let's start charging for a few things, and you're sliding your way down the line. I think the big shift point comes in the middle where you realize that your donors and your program participants are actually customers. And you have to treat them like customers, and you have to give them good value for the money. And this is sort of the entrepreneurial mindset. And I would argue if you're in a position where more than half of your budget is coming from fee for service or tuition, you are in effect a business that is dressed up in nonprofit clothing. And there's no value judgment here in terms of where you should be on the line. But if you are doing everything for free, this is a moment to think about what can we monetize in a way that's profitable and also equitable and also ethical, and those things are not mutually exclusive. So here's perhaps a filter or a toolbox to help you think about that. Let's go to the next slide. The first thing you got to figure out is, what do we got that nobody else got? What's our niche? What can we offer that is unique and special? Then you have to find out, will somebody buy it? Now, this is the question about moving programming online. It's already come up today. Will people buy it? So my advice is go with a sliding scale or put up a low price offering and see if anybody actually buys it. And you can put something up there, and if no one's interested, then you've learned that that wasn't a good choice. But you have to do some experimentation. That's what market research is. If you can, you want to repackage what you know to reach different audiences. So, for example, if you have something that would be helpful to a classroom teacher who is stuck at home trying to teach from home and doesn't know how to do that, and you have some tools or materials or products that would help them do that job better, maybe that's something that you could sell. And we figure out how to package it up. The classic mistake that we make, we've already touched on this today, is we underprice. And the only way not to underprice is to actually figure out the true cost of delivering stuff. Most grassroots nonprofits have weak accounting systems and weak time management and tracking systems. And if you say, I am going to do an environmental ed program that's every Wednesday for 4 weeks, and it's going to take this many hours of staff time to produce, and it's going to take this many hours of staff time to promote and market it, and this many hours of staff time to evaluate it, and this many hours of staff time to raise the money that we're not getting from tuition to subsidize the balance of the program. And you actually line that out, and you said, what does it really cost to deliver this? A, it would blow your mind, but B, at least you'd have a way to start pricing stuff. And as I said earlier, I think transparency is okay. So you can go to your community and say, this is a $2,000 program. And thanks to grant money, we can cover half of that, that's $1,000. And to make this work, we still have to generate another $1,000 in donations or fees to even break even. So will you help? And I don't think anyone would be offended. I think they'd be impressed that you were so organized and clear about it. Last note here, and this is hard for you guys because you're mostly in the retail business, but retail is a lot of work. If we're selling, webinars at $10 a pop, it's a lot of $10 bills. And in some ways it makes more sense, which is what I have done today, is to go to a network and say to the network, would you like to present? And Judy actually found me, I didn't find her. But I will get paid once for this instead of charging each of you $6 or something. It's all been aggregated so that I can reach 100 and something people. I get paid once. Works for me. I hope it works for NAAEE. But this is the way to think about it: is how do we work wholesale instead of retail? How do we reach multiple groups of people at once instead of one person at a time? That's how you find profit. Good. So let's go to the next slide. Now, I want to do a time check just so folks are clear. Our plan was to run the program until 4:15 Eastern. That's another 15 minutes. If some of you are expecting an hour and you have to leave us, I'm sad, but I understand. We're also going to stay for overtime in case there are extra questions you want to ask that we don't get to. But we're doing great on time. Now, if you're going to be enterprising, you need to have someone who pays attention to this. And I want to acknowledge most of you have too little time and too much to do already. So what I'm asking is totally unfair, and I acknowledge that. And if you're going to be entrepreneurial, the old line is you cannot manage a business off the corner of somebody's desk. That's the metaphor. You need the whole desk. And so my advice is, if you're serious about this, you need somebody who's spending at least 40 or 50% of their employed time being your enterprise manager and trying to figure out how we can get stuff out there that people will pay for, and how do we price stuff, and how do we market it, and what is the audience going to look like, and who do we partner with, and all of those things. Nice. So let me pause. Are there questions?
So Andy, we had a question a little further back from Alicia. Sure. About many of the groups have had auctions that have been canceled. What do you think about transferring things like a silent auction online? Do you have any experience of that?
I have seen wildly successful online auctions, and I've seen some that fail miserably. It's a whole spectrum, and I don't have a lot of specific wisdom. I can say there's a couple of issues with online auctions. Number one is you need a really good network to promote to, and you need people who will pass it on to their friends, and you need salespeople, right? It's not like you stick it on your website and all these folks flock, or you throw out 2 e-blasts and that's the whole thing. You have to market the heck out of it. And most of us either don't have the entrepreneurial gene to do it, or we just feel like we're harassing people and we don't want to. So it's all about the marketing. The other thing is you now have a fulfillment issue. Now, if it's all gift certificates and you put them in a mail and you mail them to people, it's not a big deal. But depending on what you're auctioning off, you may be in the business of putting stuff in boxes and driving to the post office and mailing it to them. And the amount of time that takes is just heartbreaking. So where I would go with this, if you want to do it, is I would have an online auction that's all services and no goods. And then people get the gift certificate for the service, and they can, at that point, it's on them, right? Mm-hmm. And it could even be an electronic gift certificate.
Yep.
So I think as long as fulfillment is easy, it's worth trying. I find auctions to be a lot of work for a modest amount of money, so I'm not a big auction guy. But if your choice is to cancel it or put it online, I would consider putting it online. I don't think that's crazy. You just have to market it pretty assertively. Good.
And Andy, one last thing here. Somebody asked about, is it a good time to use evaluators? That's Andrina, to look at the impact COVID has had on our beneficiaries and use that data for fundraising. And I wanted to mention we are partnering with the Lawrence Hall of Science on a survey to look at the impact on the field. and hopefully be able to share that data that can be used in a variety of different ways. But just any thoughts on that about how to take this info and use it in the future?
I think it's an awesome idea, and I think it's premature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I got a survey today from an arts venue that I go to for plays and concerts and things like that. And they did, 8 or 10 questions about how comfortable would you feel about coming to this event in June? How comfortable would you feel about this event in July? How comfortable would you feel? What's your age group? What could we do to make you feel more comfortable? Like, should we have fewer people in the hall? Should we clean it more deeply? All this, right?
Yeah.
And I took the survey. I was interested. But I got to tell you, my opinion is going to change a month from now.
Yeah.
Right? So my advice is I would sit tight a little longer before I started doing that assessment, because I feel like if we get the data too early, then we're going to make a lot of decisions. And I don't know when too early or too late is. I'm not a statistician. It's not my specialty, but my instinct here, follow your own instinct. My instinct is it's a little early. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, I have done entire webinars, and note to Judy, maybe I come back and do it with you guys. I have done entire webinars on shared fundraising. And today I got one slide. If there ever was a moment to think about how do we get more resources together than we can get separately, I feel like this is that moment. And some of the things that we have worked on, some of you have had these experiences. The grant proposal, I don't know how many of you done joint proposals with 2 or 3 organizations coming together, writing the proposal, dividing up the money, classic strategy. Certainly you could do funder briefings together. I mean, you could organize a Zoom call for your funders, and you could have 3 or 4 organizations hosting and sponsoring that call. That'd be great. I'm wondering maybe the online auction, the fundraising joint virtual event could be not just your group, but maybe open it up to 3 or 4 other groups, and then goes out to a larger list. And you do have to divide up the money, and figuring out how to do that takes some work, but that's worth considering. We talked about Arizona Gives and other giving days. I think there's going to be a proliferation of those in the coming months, which is probably good and bad. This might be, if you live in a relatively small town and there's a handful of major donors and everybody knows who they are, and I'm sure their phones are ringing off the hook, it would be interesting to sit down with peers and say, is there something that we could approach a donor for together? Is there some project that we could do together and we could go to the donor once instead of 3 times and say, this is this joint project. We're learning to be stronger together. Will you help us? I think there are donors that would really appreciate that. And then today is an example of the last bullet, which is we're doing a shared training, right? This is opened up to all of you, and there's whatever 130 groups that registered, and you're all getting trained at the same time. And there's no reason why your fundraising skill improving shouldn't also help somebody else's skill improve. So I believe that is all the content. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, indeed. So this is your opportunity to use chat. Anything we've talked about, we haven't talked about, we'll do our best to answer. Judy, I'm going to pick on you first. You've been listening to all this. What question do you have? Ann, I'm picking on you second, so I'm warning you.
No, I think I'm going to give it to Ann first. I have to go back through my list here. So Ann, what have you seen?
That came up earlier that we didn't get a chance to get to. Sarah actually asked if there's a way to tastefully ask for some stimulus money that a family may not need at this time.
Sure.
Is there a way to do that, or is that just bad taste right now?
I've seen good and bad. I don't know that it's tacky. I think what you can say to somebody is this. Our work is important. Our situation is fluid and a little bit scary. And we're asking all of our donors to give from whatever resources they have. If you're still working and you want to give from your income because you can afford to do that, that's awesome. If you're retired and you want to give from your assets or from whatever income you get in retirement, that's awesome. If you're about to get a stimulus check and you're one of those people who's lucky enough where your bills are covered and you don't need that, and you'd like to donate a fraction of that to us, that's awesome too. So I would couch it in the however you can help is great, and this is one thing in the list of bullets of how you could help. And I think if you did it that way, it's tasteful.
And,
Judy.
And Andy, one that Carmen just came up with is a sample letter that they can use as a framework to reach out to their donors. And I know you have examples. Is there anything we can share after this? And we have our own of just giving people some tools.
Yeah, you know, what I want you to do, Judy, I'm going to make you do the homework on this. I have a friend in New Hampshire named Alan Cantor, A-L-A-N-C-A-N-T-O-R, Al Cantor. He's a consultant. And he does a blog like once a month, and he's very thoughtful. And the last one he did was about a fundraising letter he got from his local YMCA and how it hit all the right notes for him in this moment. And one thing it said, given that he's a member, but it said, given that the Y is closed and you can't come and use the facility, we're going to refund everybody a month's dues because we really can't keep your dues if we can't service you. So he said it was really nice because they gave something back to him to start. And then they said, however, the need for our work continues. And so don't go to this slide deck yet. Go back to the other slide deck. Please, I'm not done with the other one.
We're moving you along. We're running out of time.
We're doing great. Let's go back to the other, because one thing I want to do anyway. I thought the tone was nice because it was, we're going to actually support you while you support us.
Yeah, and we'll check on that. And
yeah, look for it. Go to Al's blog and you can find it and then send the link to everybody.
And some people have said, and we have been doing this as well, as on our Facebook post, thanking donors for being flexible and just reaching out to donors whenever you can.
Amen. Now, this is the slide. This is the one I want to show.
Okay.
Because this is like good educational practice, is after you've done the work, you want people to reflect on what they learned and how they're going to use it. So this is a chat opportunity, and then we'll kick it back to you for the wrap-up slides that you have. Okay. So I would love it if everyone or anyone would go ahead and use chat to tell us how you might implement what you learned during today's webinar. And I will also say this is market research for me, because it's one way to find out what stuck and what was meaningful to people. Nice, this is good. Thank you, Etta, that's great. Lawrence, Allison, Sarah, Ryan, thank you all for jumping in on this. This is big. Good. Love it. Think about which professional networks we can support with our expertise. I like that. Yeah, people are liking the postcards. That's right. It's so old school. I think it's great. However, I am one of those people where they bring in the mail and it sits for 24 hours before I do anything with it.
These are great.
Yeah, this is really good. I'm glad we see. Isn't it good we went back to this slide deck?
Definitely.
This is a good thing. All right, so show the last slide on this one just so people can have my contact info. This is great. This is how you find me. I will get all of your email addresses at the end of this from Judy, and I have this thing called Train Your Board, which is a blog and a website and e-news and all of it. And I will add you to the list, and if you find it useful, awesome. And if you don't, you can unsubscribe, and I will never know. So.
And we're going to give a couple of books away.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
And so we're just going to pick some numbers out of the air on the list, and a couple of you are going to get one of Andy's books.
That's great. So, Ann, you pick one number. So what's it like between 0 and 130? Is that where we landed?
Right, between 1 and 130.
Okay, pick a number, Ann.
85.
85, I'm writing it down. Judy, pick a number.
19.
Beautiful. 1985, a very good year. So the way this works is we'll scan the list, and I guess you'll do this, and whoever was the 19th person on the list and the 85th person on the list, you will each get a free book coming from me, and I'll mail it out later this week.
So Andy, thank you so much. You are always so great. We appreciate all the great ideas, and you always do give me hope that I can fundraise, that all of us can bring in money for this really important work that we all do, and that it is truly relevant. So thank you so much. And Ann, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andy. And Andy, just want to let you know that we did have some folks on the line that met you back from when Judy and I worked together at Audubon. And so they said, we saw Andy years ago and we loved him. So thanks again for coming back. Just want to end today's webinar with a few announcements and a reminder that you can find all of our webinars on our website. You can check out the recordings from past webinars, and you can see what we've got coming up in the future. Additionally, on our website, we've got a growing list of resources for the field that are especially useful right now. So check it out, resources during this time. We're adding to it almost daily. And also this week is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And we are so excited to partner with the Walton Family Foundation on this social media campaign, Earth Day 2020. To share all of our stories of how we find hope, how we get inspiration by being in nature. So join us using the hashtag Earth Day 2020 this Wednesday. And Judy already mentioned we've got a great webinar coming up next week. Join us April 30th. We'll be with Michael Margolis talking all about how we can use storytelling to talk about our work in this time. How do we pivot our story to make it more relevant? That came up a ton at our webinar today. How do we make our work more relevant to our funders? And we've got so many other great webinars coming up in May. How do we connect with the Latino community during this time? A bunch of stories about inspiration, how to use nature as inspiration. And we'll be working with Angela Park at the end of May or early June, all to address some other questions about equity and inclusion that have been coming up during this time. So stay tuned for more information.
And I'll do a shout out to Angela Park, who's a friend, and Angela's very good. So I hope you can participate.
Yes.
It's true.
And do want to end with a survey. So many of you are saying that these webinars have been super helpful for you. We've been ramping up our webinar offerings almost weekly now. So please keep an eye out for a survey that we're going to send to you just to get some thoughts of what are some topics that are most useful for you? What have you loved? What can we bring to you that'll make these webinars more relevant for you right now? And that is all the announcements I have. Thanks everybody for the great participation. Thanks again, Andy and Judy. We hope to see all of you again on a webinar very soon.
Thanks,
and
Ann.
the photo says everything's gonna be okay.
And everybody go outside, right?
Go outside.
Get outside,
Okay.
get some fresh air, get some sunshine. That's the best thing.
Thank you.
And thank you, Judy, thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Annie. Bye.